A food fight in one neighborhood in Queens between NYCHA tenants and newly arrived migrants.
Fox 5's Ashley Rodriguez shows us how tensions are growing with not enough food to go around.
So the poor citizens of New York who depend on food services are being ignored, and those services are now going to migrants. Now this has caused some tension in the poor communities between both the migrants and the citizens who've already been there.
Why do we have to take the butt of everything? Okay, this community here is already suffering.
The residents living in NYCHA's Queensbridge houses look forward to the mobile food pantries that show up weekly. But over the past year, they have witnessed 8,000 migrants move into their neighborhood, and they have also noticed the migrants are also starting to take their stuff.
They was first online for the turkeys this morning. If they tell you to be there at 11 o'clock, you get there like 10:30, 10:45, but they already out there. The line is from over there to over here.
Free food giveaways, especially during the holidays, have become a source of tension between longtime New Yorkers struggling to get by and newly arrived migrants who are using the system to survive. A month ago, one altercation got so heated between a resident and a migrant, someone ended up in the hospital.
Now this has caused a backlash because New York has homeless people and poor people before the migrants arrived. Now those people have to compete with migrants for city services.
Demonstrators in New York City's Staten Island neighborhood are celebrating the blocking of a proposed migrant shelter in their neighborhood.
I think even people who are open-minded to what they call migrants coming in have understood now it's costing us.
Having accommodated over 100,000 recent migrants, New York City Mayor Eric Adams has warned that this may have grave implications for the city.
And how dare anyone say New York City is not going through a crisis? And here's the sad part about it, folks. When you get 10,000 a month, there's no relief in sight. And so I'm not going to search through a thesaurus and find the proper way to be politically correct to tell you that this can destroy our city, this crisis.
Now, this was totally avoidable. This problem for New York is self-made. The city and state asked for this crisis. Here's the governor of New York asking for migrants to come to New York in mass.
We want people to come here, despite where they came from or despite the circumstances that drove them to this country and to this state. We say you are welcome here. We are welcome with open arms, and we'll work to keep you safe. We'll not only house you, but we'll protect you. And the richness of the culture and the diversity and the food and the restaurants that we know are going to be coming because of these efforts are beyond measure. It's an extraordinary part of our story. And it's woven into the story of New York, and it makes us more vibrant.
Those are the cities then started declaring states of emergency as they couldn't handle the influx of migrants that they asked for.
Governor Healey just declared a state of emergency in Massachusetts because of the number of migrants arriving in Massachusetts. Healey says they are overwhelming local shelters.
They're here because Massachusetts has and will always be a beacon of hope, compassion, humanity, and opportunity.
Here in Chicago, Mayor Lightfoot just issued an emergency declaration in response to the surge of migrants being bused to the city by Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
And Casey Cronus is live from City Hall with the latest on this.
Natalie and Anthony, at least 48 more migrants arrived to the city today, and Mayor Lori Lightfoot says she doesn't expect the buses to stop anytime soon. Just as that surge is expected, the city's 7 migrant shelters and 3 respite sites are now overrun. Since last August, the city has welcomed more than 8,000 migrants, but funding and resources are dwindling.
The New York City Mayor Eric Adams declaring a state of emergency over the ever-escalating number of asylum seekers coming to the city. The mayor says the shelter system is overwhelmed and that after today, the city will set a new record for the highest number of people ever in the system.
Although our compassion is limitless, our resources are not.
Now remember, all of these cities who are declaring states of emergency asked for this problem. The people who are most vulnerable in these cities are the ones who now have to suffer. For instance, the poor New Yorkers who are living in the projects depend on free food services and other city services to survive. Now, these same people have to compete with migrants who also are depending on these services to survive.
We would never turn anyone away for a meal, but there simply just is not enough for both NYCHA residents and the migrant shelter residents.
Councilmember Julie Wan says she alerted the mayor to the growing tension in her community and was able to get $50,000 to increase the number of hot meals served inside NYCHAs. But she's concerned the mayor's new budget cuts will only put further stress on a community already living in scarcity.
People are going hungry right now. People are frustrated with not having enough to eat, not having heat and hot water in their shelters or in their houses in NYCHA. And people want to make sure that they just have their basic needs met.
As you just heard, the mayor started cutting the budget massively. Why? Because they're spending all the money to fund the migrant crisis. Just imagine how these people must feel. Homeless vets, families in the projects, they all need help. And the city is choosing to give the money to someone else to make a political point. So the citizens must suffer to make the politicians look good in the eyes of the migrants? And the irony of all this is that the Democrats say they are for Black and brown people struggling in the inner city, but those are the same people suffering under their policies. So now that the money is tight, the voters in places like New York and Chicago are making their anger heard. For example, in Chicago, the city wanted to pass a $50 million aid package for the migrants. But the people in the community asked, $50 million for them? If you got it to give to the migrants, what about the people who are already here?
To say that you need $51 million more just to get us through the end of July is an outrageous ask when you won't tell us how you're going to spend that money, least of all how you spent the previous money, and what you're going to do come August 1st when this money runs out and we still have no solution in sight.
Even as hundreds of migrants continue to sleep on police station floors all across the city, the idea of allocating city funds to pay to house and support an ever-increasing number of arrivals is a controversial one. Natasha Dunn was among a large group of opponents who attended and spoke at the meeting.
They're putting migrants against us. We feel like there's this tug of war, and it shouldn't be, because if there's money for everyone, then it shouldn't be a problem for us to also get $50 million to go toward the needs that have been pressing in our community.
You know, New York finds itself in an interesting position because New York believe that they can help everybody around the world. Anybody, we can bring as many people here as we can and just feed them and clothe them and do whatever. But the reality is New York had homeless people in New York before the migrant crisis. They couldn't help everybody then. But now all of a sudden you got 100,000 new people come in and it's even gotten worse. And they essentially have done this. They've put poor people versus poor people because the resources in New York City for poor people were limited already. And now they've gotten even more limited because you've influxed another 100,000 people into the city. And how are they going to eat, right? Just like with these Thanksgiving turkeys. There's only but certain amount of turkeys to go around. And the migrants aren't stupid. They're going to the same homeless shelters, food pantries that the poor people in the city are always going to because they're not going to ask for ID, right? We're going to give the food out. But you've put now New Yorkers in a horrible position where those same citizens that you said you were going to take care of, that Mayor Brandon Johnson and Mayor Eric Adams say they really care about, are the ones who are going to suffer the most over these crazy policies. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section if you think I am, and I'll see you next time. Peace.